Hey guys, so in this video we are going to continue deconstructing the Hello World example. We are going to see some other concepts about how code works and also how code editors have some features that help us writing our programs. So let's continue, and looking at our code and to the output, it's really easy to understand where the Hello World is coming from. So we can assume that this is the line responsible for writing the Hello World message on the console. And you can just test it. So if we just copy the line and change the message here, and if we run our program, you're going to have both messages hello world and hello code below. And looking at the line that allows us to write the messages, we can see several things. So we can understand that this is the instruction responsible for telling the program, okay, write something on the console. And between parentheses is the message that we want to write. Now, the message that we are writing, you can see that here the message is between quotation marks, but the quotation marks don't actually appear here on the console. And this is because we use quotation marks to denote what is called a string. And a string is basically a piece of text. So every time you put something between quotation marks, that is a text that the compiler don't need to worry about as if it was actual code. So this is also a way for the compiler to know, okay, if this is between quotation marks, then I don't need to try to translate this to the code, to machine code, to the code that the computer can understand. And something to also be mindful about is that if you open quotation marks, you also need to remember to close them. So you can see that here, because I remove the last quotation marks from this pair, you can see that everything here changed color. And we can also understand that this color is for strings. So this color is to identify that what we have here is a text and not actual code. So if you forget to close the quotation marks, you can see that all the code afterwards will also become text. So that's just so you know that don't forget to close the quotation marks. Like everything else, don't forget to close quotation marks, parentheses, curly brackets, square brackets, everything that works in pairs. If you use the first one, you need to use the last one. And like I was talking about the colors, you can see that strings, for example, have a different color than the rest of the code. And this is a feature of most code editors called syntax highlighting. And basically what it does is it highlights specific parts of the code, so it's easy to write and also to read the entire program. So you can see here that strings have a different color, for example. So we can immediately see that, okay, this is a piece of text, this is not code. And we also have some other words like this one and all these three words and this one here. And even on the first line we have, and here we actually have two different colors. So this is the same color that all these ones, and this one has also a different color from the rest of the code. And these words that have different colors, all these ones that I was just showing you, they are called keywords. And keywords are words that are reserved by the compiler because they have special meanings. And when we say that they are reserved by the compiler, it means that these words have a specific context where they can be used. So you cannot use these words. We'll see later when we are creating variables and you're going to need to name the variables. You cannot use these words to name variables, for example, because these words are reserved for the compiler, and the compiler is expecting to have these words on specific locations because they have a specific meaning. Now, something really important. If you are trying to understand what all these words mean, if you're trying to understand, okay, what's using, what's a class, what's public, what's static, what's void, forget it. At least for now. I mean, and I'm saying this because at least my approach when trying to teach others how to code, and what I think it's better for you to do at the beginning when you are trying to learn how to code, is to try to understand stuff on a need-to-know basis. And that's what I'll also be using as my approach. So I'm just going to be explaining the concepts that you need on a need-to-know basis. So right now, if you don't need to understand what is a class, what is a public, a static, a void, I'm not going not going to go into it, because if you start trying to understand everything that you see in the code, you you have a hard time like trying to get something working at the end, because okay, what's a public? Okay, so public means this, and if we have public, then we have another keyword, and you're going to go into a rabbit hole, and it's going to get really hard to just get stuff done. So at least this is my approach, and this is how I believe it's easier to start learning how to program. So so now you know that if I'm not going into what each one of these keywords mean, that's on purpose. And continuing, so we have syntax highlighting, we have keywords, and also now what I want to talk about is how the code is executed. So you can see that we have these two messages here, and the messages are appearing on the console in the exact same order that we have here on our program. And this is because the code is executed from top to bottom, one line after the other. And this is called the execution flow. And the execution flow matters, of course. So if you write one line before the other, in some cases it will matter. Not here, for example, because these are two messages, but usually the execution flow is something that matters when you are writing code. And we also see some ways that you can change the execution flow, or you can like only run one line and not the other. You can repeat some lines, but we'll save that for later. So just so you know, code is executed from top to bottom. And if the code is executed from top to bottom, you also need to understand, okay, but how does the program know where to start reading? I mean, how does the program know what is the first instruction that is going to run? And that is called the entry point of the program. And in this case, the entry point of a C# program is exactly this that you see here. So this public static void main with string args, this is the entry point of the program. So when you are writing a C# program, the program knows that it needs to start, or everything or the entire program starts from this block that you have right here. Now, I'm not going to, once again, I'm not going into what this block exactly means. So, but it's just so you know that if someone hands you a C# program, the first thing that you need to understand, or you need to check is, okay, where is the program start? Because everything else, all the code that you're going to see and all the output that you are going to see is going to start from that entry point. And also, a thing to notice is that this entry point is only for C# programs. Other languages will have like different entry points, so that's also useful to know. And this is it. So I think with everything, I think we like covered everything around the Hello World example. And so on the next video, we are going to actually start implementing the odds and even game. So I'll see you there. Thanks.